So with that, let's bring in our panel. Annie Linskey, White House reporter for The Wall Street Journal. Fox News contributor Ben Domenech, host of the Big Ben podcast, and Yemisi Egbewale, former chief of staff and advisor to the Biden White House press office. Okay, Annie, what are you hearing about this speech?
Well, I mean, I think what the president said, that clip was just the perfect clip, which is he's saying the American people are going to be feeling better soon, as in the future. And one of the things that this White House is struggling with is the fact that they aren't feeling great right now. This is the case that Peter Navarro has made, senior advisors have made to us both privately and publicly, that the changes that the president has made to this economy are painful in the short term, but there is this this silver lining. There's this kind of brighter day that they say is coming, and I think that's the case that they have to keep making, and then people have to start feeling it.
Yeah, Ben, all the polls are heading in the same direction. I know the president has problems with different polls, but they're all kind of tracking in the same way. They are a snapshot in time. If you look at the condition of the economy, our new polls now excellent, good, 28%, 72% fair or poor. Concerned about inflation and high prices, now 90% respond that they are concerned about that, and that's tracking across all these different polls.
Yeah, I think you really see a picture that is unchanged from January, which is not a good picture. And I think that a big part of that is that you have a Republican Congress that got the one big beautiful bill over the finish line and basically just sat on their hands. They really haven't done anything. You're looking at historically low levels of legislation passed, even with the fact that you've got majorities technically in the House, the Senate, and of course you have the White House. Instead of pushing forward on so many different fronts, basically they're just waiting around for people to benefit from the tax policies that they put into place, the introduction of new accounts, for instance, for newborns and the like. They want to see those things happen in the spring, and they're hoping that that's going to hit people. But I think the expectations people had was that sending Donald Trump back to the Oval Office was itself going to be a game changer for our economy. That has turned out not to be the case to the degree that they want it to be. And even though you see some silver linings here and there, it needs to be better for Republicans to be able to buck historical trends.
But Yemisi, isn't that a decent argument to make that, hey, we had a mess that we took over and now we're trying, it just takes time? Take a listen to the former Speaker Newt Gingrich and the minority leader in the Senate.
The Trump administration is committed to every American at every level of education having a good job, having a good income, and having a decent way of life. Now, they still have to finish recovering from the Biden disaster.
People want their costs to go down. They don't want a finger pointed at what happened months or years ago. We're ready to work with Republicans if they'll help us get costs down.
It's just, how you approach the argument here.
Yeah, I don't oftentimes agree with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, but he's right. People can't play a waiting game here when it comes to the cost of their utilities, child care, and health care. And members of Congress also can't play a waiting game. We're going into 2026, and a lot of people are going to have to fight for their districts and their seats. And look, we know that Democrats might have an advantage when it comes to how the House will look come November 2026. But members are still thinking about themselves at this moment and kind of some self-preservation. And so they might need more than their own constituents for the president to come with some credibility on this conversation about the cost of living. I know he's called affordability a hoax before, but polling has clearly showed that the American people don't believe it's a hoax.
Yeah, Annie, and these four Republicans siding with Democrats on the health care, extending the tax subsidies, the benefits. Axios writes it this way: GOP centrists helped Dems defy Mike Johnson. A group of House Republican centrists defied House Speaker on Wednesday, helped House Democrats secure the 218 signatures needed to force a vote on extending Affordable Care Act tax credits in an extraordinary revolt against GOP leadership that ensures the House will vote on extending the credits for 3 years. Here is Speaker Johnson.
I have not lost control of the House.
Because this is the third time.
There are many. Look, we have the smallest majority in U.S. history. Okay, these are not normal times. There are processes and procedures in the House that are less frequently used when there are larger majorities, and when you have the luxury of having 10 or 15 people who disagree on something. You don't have to deal with it. But when you have a razor-thin margin, as we do, then all the procedures in the book people think are on the table, and that's the difference.
Love those walking press conferences. And he said, I've not lost control of the House, but it's a super small majority, and this is the result of that. We'll see what happens with this vote in early January.
Yeah, I mean, sort of 'tis the season for discharge petitions, a very wonky term that I never thought I would be talking about on television. But this is, these are 4 Republicans that are in competitive or very likely to be competitive seats. They are looking at 2026, and they want to hold on to their jobs. And so the politics here is that they, especially in Pennsylvania, where affordability has been such a winning issue for people on either side of the ballot, for lack of a better word. So you can understand why these members in particular are taking a pretty extraordinary step to stand up for lower costs on health care.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you talk to some Republicans and they say, Democrats don't say that Obamacare is not working and that the exchanges are not bringing the costs down. Why extend the tax credits for 3 years? I mean, you can't get Congress to come around something in 1 year to try to fix the cost issue in health care.
I love that Chuck Schumer doesn't want to talk about the past, because the past is where Obamacare happened, which is how we got to this point. The fact is that the insurers that own the Democratic Party, the systems that have been created because of Obamacare that own the Democratic Party, have completely owned this debate. They want to keep that unprecedented amount of money flowing into their coffers, which is what this is all about. I suggest United Health take some of that $9 billion that they spent on lobbying last year and maybe use that to actually lower premiums. It is ridiculous that centrism has become a stand-in for the idea that you spend more taxpayer money on bad policy. And that's exactly what these so-called centrists in the Republican Party did.
Yeah, MSA, I only have a few seconds. I obviously had a common ground early in the show. There are a lot of bipartisan plans up there.
Yeah, I mean, folks who work in purple and swing districts are looking to the independents, and the independents are asking a question: what are you going to do to reduce the hurt that I feel now? And I think that's going to be the big theme going into 2026 for both Republicans and Democrats.
All right, panel, thanks so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.